yesterday, something happened to Scott Ritter, and it was everywhere yesterday. For those of you that are on Twitter, you've probably already seen this. But what was really weird to me is that last time Scott Ritter was on the show, he announced that he was going to be heading to Russia. The reason why he was going to Russia was for the St. Petersburg Economic Forum, right? So this is like a big deal in Russia. And there were a couple people that he was supposed to meet there, like Fiorella, I think, was going to be there. Tara Reid was going to be there as well. Judge Napolitano, I believe, was going to go. We'll get into what happened with him because there's been some corrections there with his story, but he wasn't there either. We'll get into that. But when he was here, I asked him about that because I was a little concerned given what happened to Tara Reid. So Tara Reid went to Russia. She's still in Russia. She has not returned to the United States. She just spent, I think, her first Christmas in Russia. And remember why she went there. She went there because she was actually publishing different translations of her books, or her book was being translated into multiple languages. Then she received information from Congressman Matt Gaetz that she should not return to the United States because, you know, she would probably be detained, right? Because she has the case against, or she's been pushing for a case against Joe Biden, etc. So Tara Reid is still there. So while he was here, he mentioned that he was going to be going to Russia this summer. And I asked him, do you think, are you concerned about what would happen? So let's flash back to that, and then we'll move forward with what happened yesterday. I asked you this question. I know you said you're going to go visit Russia in June. Are you concerned that you may be detained when you try to come back to the United States? And I'm asking just because I know that's happened to Fiorella, and I know Tara Reid is in a very troubling position right now. She is kind of stuck in Russia, went there for a book tour, and then was told by Representative Matt Gaetz that if she were to return to the United States, that she would probably be detained. Are you concerned about that, or are you just kind of like, whatever, fuck them?
Well, I mean, I have a family and I have responsibilities. So the last thing I want to do is end up being detained. And this will be my third trip in a year. I went last May for a month. When I came back, I was stopped for a number of hours and questioned extensively before they returned my passport, shook my hand and told me, "Welcome to America." I went again in December and January for a lengthy tour that took me through some controversial areas like the Donbass and Crimea. I gave a speech before 25,000 Chechen soldiers that got a lot of attention. So I thought for sure I was going to get some special treatment. They made me sit down for an hour, handed me my passport, shook my hand, said, "Welcome to America, welcome home," and sent me on my way. This trip, there's nothing controversial about it, which probably means they're going to shoot me upon arrival. But there's nothing controversial about this trip. I'm literally going, we're going to go to 16 different cities throughout. The motto of this trip is from the Pacific Ocean to the Baltic Sea and everything in between. And we are going to places that most Americans won't have heard of. And that's why we're going to expose Americans to this. We're going to meet with Russians, have town hall meetings. We're going to introduce Americans. We're reaching out to peace activists across the country to get a list of people who would like to have Russian pen pals. In each city, we're going to find Russian families, and we're going to match them up with an American family. We're going to have a satellite hook up there and let the first call be on us, put them together, let them talk, and then we're going to try and create this connectivity that needs to be happening so that people stop fearing Russia and Russians stop fearing America.
Yeah. So the purpose of the trip was actually to promote peace. But unfortunately, Scott actually never arrived in Russia because Scott Ritter was removed from his plane yesterday when he was on his way to Russia. So some of you saw me post this tweet and you were like, what the hell? What is happening? Where did this come from? I tweeted this yesterday. State Department confiscated Scott Ritter's passport after forcing him off the plane. So some of you reached out to me after you saw this and you were like, what the hell is happening here? Like, where did you get this? So again, like I'm not psychic. Sebastian, this is why Pisces folk are psychic. I'm not psychic. I just had a feeling. I was concerned that there would be issue because of what happened to Tara Reid, right? So she's, Fiorella's been detained too as well, but Tara Reid still can't come back to the United States. So that's just why Tim though said you did. Damn. I just had a feeling, right? But I actually saw it from Sputnik's site here, and they were the first ones, first outlet I saw announce it. And it said U.S. State Department forced Scott Ritter off plane to Russia, confiscated his passport. So that was my first news about it. And you can see a little bit from here, but I'll show you because he was on Ask the Inspector and he goes into a little bit more detail. As I was boarding my flight out of New York, I was pulled aside by 3 CBP officers who seized my passport. When asked why, they said orders of the State Department. So that would include all the people that you see, the Matt Miller, the John Kirby, like those fellows who stand up in front of an audience of journalists and lie every day. No further information was provided. My bags were removed from the flight and I was escorted out of the airport. And that was coming from Scott Ritter. He added that his passport was not given back. He said he will appeal the decision. So Ritter believes U.S. authorities are afraid of his participation in the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum. So let's go ahead and hear from Scott Ritter himself, because he did talk about this on Ask the Inspector. And for those who are wondering, there was word that Judge Napolitano was also removed from the plane. I do want to issue that correction from Sputnik here. That actually did not, according to Scott Ritter, Judge Napolitano canceled his flight to Russia for different reasons unrelated to Ritter's removal from the plane. So I just wanted to clear that up because I know some people were mentioning that different reason he wasn't taken off of the plane. But you can hear from Scott yourself here. A little bit more detail, Scott Ritter on Ask the Inspector about how things went down. Lego.
Well, in short, I was prohibited from boarding my flight to Istanbul and on to St. Petersburg by the Customs and Border Patrol, who claimed to be acting on behalf of the U.S. Department of State. They seized my passport without explanation and therefore denied me the ability to leave. This was a deliberate ambush, and what I mean by that is this was not a spontaneous, administrative thing. This was a deliberate act by the United States government to prevent me from getting on this airplane to attend the function that I was scheduled to attend, which is St. Petersburg International Economic Forum, where I was scheduled to appear on 2 panels. And just so people understand, the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum, I think most Western people, if you said Davos, everybody goes, well, that's that place where the World Economic Forum, that's where all the heads of states come and it's a big deal. And if I said, hey, I'm going to be speaking, at Davos, people go, wow, that's a big deal. St. Petersburg International Economic Forum is a bigger deal than Davos. It's a bigger gathering with more important people, especially in this day and age of the of BRICS. It's a very big deal. And there's no doubt in my mind that the U.S. government said, you're not going to speak. And they seized my passport. Whether they've revoked my passport, I don't know, because they didn't give me an explanation. I guess tomorrow I begin the laborious process of calling people to find out just what the hell's going on. But it is what it is. I can
pause there for just a second and we'll go into a little bit more detail with them here. First of all, we should be free to travel wherever we want to go in this world. This is just ridiculous. As an American, you should be able to get on a plane and go to whatever country you want to go to. And it doesn't matter. It should not matter. Who cares why he was going there? You should be able to go where you want to. This is supposed to be the land of the free. Are we free? Apparently not. Apparently not. If you can't just get on a plane and go to work, what the hell? So this is a problem. It's a problem. It's not just with Scott Ritter. It's a problem that Tara Reid can't come home. It's a problem that Fiorella got detained for doing her job as a journalist. It's a problem that Kit Clarenberg was detained for doing his job as a journalist. That's a problem.
Let me just, so everybody understands, I'll give you a little bit of background about the passport, because some people say, well, I mean, the U.S. government has the right to seize passports, don't they? Under limited circumstances, they do. But remember, travel is a sort of a, constitutional right. Free speech is a constitutional right. And they have infringed on my constitutional rights. So on what basis? In 2009, my passport was seized by the state of Pennsylvania when they arrested me and began the process of manufacturing a criminal case that led to my conviction and incarceration.
And Scott has talked about this before. For many people asking about that, Scott has spoken about that before. I'm not going to put that on YouTube though, so let me go forward just a little bit more here, because I know how YouTube can be about that. But the feds and the State Department, they've come after Scott Ritter before. I'm actually going to show you another clip of when, what do you call it? Joe Biden, I almost forgot his damn name. God damn. When Joe Biden actually confronted Scott Ritter many years ago. And you may not have seen this video footage before, but you are going to see it tonight.
It's the U.S. government notification of my travel within 21 days of leaving. This is a legal requirement. If I don't do this, it's a felony. You go to jail for a long time.
Now, you said within 21 days. Did you mean to say no less than 21 days?
No less than 21 days.
Yeah.
I mean, if I submitted on 20 days, I'm in violation of law.
Right.
So I habitually submit them around the 28-day mark just to be safe. And I do this. I get a signature from the police officer certifying that he's received this. And then I get 3 copies. I leave one with him. I keep one myself as I travel in case I'm confronted by a Customs and Border Patrol person who says, have you complied with us here? Right here. Boom. And I give one to my wife in case they decide they want to incarcerate me. She has a document that she can show to a lawyer. So I've done this. Now, I have to admit, the first time I went to Russia, anybody who was talking to me at the time, I didn't think the U.S. government was going to let me go. I thought for sure they'd come up with some excuse to stop, seize the passport, etc.
But nope, they let him go. So again, it's not like this was a secret trip. He's making it very clear to you that he had to notify the government to let them know where he was traveling to. So it's not like this was a secret trip. We're going to fast forward to the second part of this discussion here, where he goes into a little bit more detail as well.
On this trip, I submitted the travel request with the record, again, 28 days in advance. The only thing I can think that was different on this trip is I'm scheduled to go to the Moscow International Security Conference in August. But because of the late return, we were coming back on July 20th. The 21 day, if I had waited to submit my paperwork upon return, I wouldn't have met the 21 days. So I submitted it early. And I'm thinking they freaked out. I'm thinking they looked at me taking a 45-day trip to Russia, then turning around and making a 28-day trip to Russia. They saw St. Petersburg International Economic Forum. They saw Moscow International Security Conference, and they said, shut this thing down.
Moscow is an international city. I mean, a lot of people have been to Moscow. It was just really weird to me. But I totally get what he's saying about the day limit, because I'm thinking about that for just a second. The point that Scott's trying to make is he had to do the request earlier this time around, because obviously he's supposed to be back there in August. So he would not have been back in time from this particular trip to submit the paperwork again, to have that 21-day gap that he needs for approval to get back there in time for August. So he went ahead and turned it in early. And that is what he believes may have, signaled a concern for them or whatever. Right. Let's go on a little bit more.
And that's what they did. They took my passport. They shut her down. I'm in violation of no laws. I've done nothing illegal. I've done everything up front, on board, etc. They were afraid of what I was going to say at St. Petersburg, not just what I was going to say, but where I was going to say it. And it's not just the panels that I was going to be on. The St. Petersburg International Economic Forum provides a giant megaphone to the whole frickin' world. It is basically the incubator for BRICS. BRICS was I'm supposed to go there in October too. Maybe they don't want me to attend that, but so I was doing the trifecta this year. St. Petersburg, Moscow, and BRICS. But this forum is the big deal. This is the big event. This is where everything's going to be established, set up, prepared for BRICS, and being on stage, having access to the media. I mean, the amount of media attention that would be garnered by speaking there would have just taken whatever message was being put out there and just blown it way out of proportion. And there's 100% certainty the U.S. government said no, because they could have shut this down anytime they wanted to. I mean, if whatever excuse they're coming up with, they could have shut it down back in last year when I went the first time.
Yep.
Thorough review of my passport, thorough review of my documentation. They didn't shut it down. They could have shut it down in January when I came back from visiting the new territories. Thorough review of my passport, thorough review of the documents. They didn't shut it down. They shut it down now. Why? St. Petersburg International Forum, and we were going on a 40-day tour that scared the crap out of them.
So those are very good points that Scott Ritter just raised there. Like, why didn't they ever shut this down before? Like, it's not like it's the first time he would have been going to Russia. He has been there multiple times before. So yeah, that is very interesting. Scott Ritter is a very outspoken individual. He's spoken up heavily about this war between Russia and Ukraine. He's also criticized, Israel, and he's been to Israel. So he's talked about, some of the good things he remembers about Israel, and then based on like some of the bad things, like what's been happening with Gaza and with the West Bank as well. He's very outspoken, but you also have to remember Scott Ritter was an intelligence officer. And so the U.S. government and the State Department in particular, they look at Scott Ritter with a side eye. They see Scott Ritter as a traitor. That's how they look at him. And you'll see a little bit of that in just a second. But some of the people that were supposed to be there. So Tara Reid, she's disappointed she didn't get to see Scott. She said Scott Ritter was to be on the same panel with me in St. Petersburg Economic Forum. His passport has been seized before he could leave for Russia. What is happening, America? This is not freedom of speech. No, it's not. I mean, it's just crazy. Man, I remember this, okay? Back in the day, you didn't need a passport to go to Canada. Back in the day. Apparently, after September 11, that changed. I mean, we share the same continent, fam. We share the same continent. But for them to come and get on the plane and pull you off of the plane and seize your passport, I hope he's able to get his passport back or apply for a new one. But that's not American. These are not American values. Let's talk about this. When we say we're the home of the free and the land of the brave, these are not American values. And over time, we've seen it doesn't matter what administration is in the White House. It doesn't matter if it's a Republican administration or a Democrat administration. We are seeing our rights slowly being stripped away from us as the years go by. This is not American, period. And that's how you need to look at it. But you have to understand again, they don't like Scott Ritter. You can just go back to this video of when Scott Ritter stood in front of Senator Biden back before he was sleepy and confronted him about the war in Iraq. Remember, Scott Ritter was a weapons inspector. He was an intelligence officer. He called out the U.S. government about the lies they were spreading about the Iraq war. They don't like people like that. But look at what they did to people like, they got rid of Phil Donahue. They canceled Phil Donahue's show because he spoke out against the war in Iraq. That's how crazy these people are. That's how bad they are. Anything to keep the war machine going. So this is Scott Ritter in front of Joe Biden. And I want you to see the way that Joe Biden spoke to him. This is September 3rd, 1998. I believe this is 1998. Listen to this.
Believe these really reflect his views.
No, sir, I do not.
My time is up. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Biden.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I envy your position. I sincerely do. I envy the ability to have such clarity on this issue. Let me ask you a question. Do you think you should be the one to be able to decide when to pull the trigger?
No, sir.
Isn't that what this is about? If you adopt the position that any time you are denied, your particular, and there's 4 groups out there, and inspectors, you're the group you headed, anytime you are denied, that ipso facto requires the United States and the Security Council to act on what they said they would do, which is to use whatever means necessary to take on Saddam Hussein so you can get into that particular facility. Is that not correct? Is that not your position?
Mr. Senator, I have a job to do, or I had a job to do, and that was to disarm Iraq in accordance with the provisions of relevant resolutions.
With all due respect, I'm not trying to be confrontational. I'm trying to get this as clear as I can. I really mean this now. You have an absolute logic. You put together a very tight syllogism here. You've indicated that your job is to disarm. The only way you can disarm is to have access. The only way you can have access is either with permission on the part of Iraq, or if denied, forced access, right?
Compelled access.
Compelled. Yes. Well, okay. Compelled. You sound like the lawyer and I sound like the military guy. I mean, compelled, where I come from, when my old man said you're compelled, it meant I was forced. I mean, it was a real simple proposition. It wasn't much to debate. Now, there is a clear logic to that. And that's what I mean when I say I respect your position. But that means that whenever you choose a target that warrants inspection and you are denied, that ipso facto, at that moment, the only way your position can be satisfied or sustained is if the UN Security Council or the United States, acting unilaterally, uses force to guarantee access. Is not that true?
Yes, sir.
Now, that means that you get to choose the time and place when we would use force, if we use force.
No, sir.
Of course you do. If you choose the site and it's denied.
And we coordinate with the member states to include the United States.
Exactly.
And prior to us going in, we had their agreement that this indeed is an inspection worth doing.
Okay, inspection worth doing, everybody's agreed it's worth doing, and it gets stopped.
Yes, sir.
At that moment, we're an automatic pilot as far as you're concerned. Period. No ifs, ands, or buts. Now, I respect that.
When I look back at these old videos, I just shake my head and I just say to myself that Joe Biden was always an asshole. Joe Biden was always an asshole. Whether it's this video or it's the video of the, showing the Anita Hill hearing against Clarence Thomas and the way that Joe Biden spoke to Anita Hill during that time. I look back and he was just always just a snarky asshole, But so remember, guys, you think that Joe Biden forgot who Scott Ritter is? This is, well, maybe. Joe might be because he's kind of sleepy. But this is Scott Ritter in front of Senator Joe Biden, talking to him about the war in Iraq, talking to him about the weapons. Let me see what it says here because I forgot to read the description. Watch Joe Biden in 1998 mock U.S. weapons inspector for opposing the Iraq war. So again, because Joe Biden wanted the war to happen. All these lies that our government told us.
But now it seems to me the Secretary of State might have a slightly different problem. Secretary of State might be sitting there and saying, now look over there on that side. Now, I remember so-and-so and so-and-so and so-and-so, and the 12 people on this side, they're all the ones that said they didn't want to use force. Now, I'm going to have to go tell the president now that we should, or Secretary Cohen, unleash whatever it takes to get it done. And our military assessment is the same as the majors. The majors' assessment is, privately held but publicly acknowledged later, that airstrikes alone aren't going to do this. Saddam's not going to cave on this. So, now here's the deal. I recommended the president have at it and let the chips fall where they may. A reasonable position for the Secretary of Defense, the Secretary of State to take. But I respectfully suggest, Major, I respectfully suggest they have a responsibility slightly above your pay grade. Slightly above your pay grade. To decide whether or not to take the nation to war alone, or to take the nation to war partway, or to take the nation to war halfway. That's a real tough decision. That's why they get paid the big bucks. That's why they get the limos and you don't.
In other words, what he's trying to say to Scott Ritter is that I feel like you're looking into things that you shouldn't look into. No, but as his job as a weapons inspector, remember when Scott Ritter had talked about this the first time he came on my show, what did he explain? He explained that he knew there were no weapons of mass destruction for Saddam Hussein because they had already removed all of that stuff. So he knew they weren't there. And Joe Biden is sitting here and basically saying to Scott Ritter, you shouldn't have been looking into what you were supposed to do, which was your job. That's what he means when he says it's above your pay grade. But Scott Ritter wanted to do the right thing. And I think what a lot of us have realized along the way is that the U.S. government doesn't want you to do the right thing. The U.S. government doesn't want you to look into to see if things are ethically or if they're morally sound. They want you to nod your head and do what you are told.
I mean this sincerely. I'm not trying to be flip, because I think, and that's why I said at the outset, the reason why I'm glad you did what you did, we should come to our milk. We should make a decision. But in terms of whether the Secretary of State has no more to consider than you do as the arms inspector, you didn't get in, didn't get my job done, get me in. Period. You made the deal, right? That's the deal. A deal's a deal. Get me in. Scott Ritter, I'm ready to go. It's not how it works. Now, maybe it should work that way. But wouldn't you acknowledge that if you were President of the United States or the Secretary of State, you'd sit there and say, now, okay, old Scotty boy didn't get in. We said he should get in. We want him to get in. It's important that he does get in. They're not going to let him in, so what are we going to do now? We know that France and Russia aren't going to be with us. We're quite confident China's not. We've already run those traps. They're not there. We're not sure where the United States Senate is, but have at it, boys. Go get them. And by the way, Scott and the boys say air power's not enough. I think it's a legitimate debate, Scott, Major. I think it's a legitimate debate. But I don't think we should be putting it in the context of you have somebody up there at state saying, look, how can we weasel out of this agreement? We want to let this guy out there hanging. We're not this. It's a very practical political decision. Same kind of decision General Powell made. Same kind of decision President Bush made. Every president, every Secretary of State has to do it. Like I said, they get paid more than you. Their job's a hell of a lot more complicated than yours. They may have made the wrong decision, and you brought it to light. We should address it. We should say straight up where we are, and we should do it. And for that, I thank you. But it's above your pay grade. I yield.
Joe Biden, such a just a conniving, just an asshole, just a complete asshole.
Senator Warner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Major, you've leveled one of the most serious indictments against the top-level national security team of this country that has ever been done in contempt.
Yeah. So you guys, that was, for those of you that just joined, that was Scott Ritter and Joe Biden in 1998, where Scott Ritter was present to obviously condemn the war in Iraq. And you can tell it was the 90s. You can tell it was the 90s because Scott kind of has the TV dad haircut back then. You guys remember the TV dad like haircut? Yeah, but this is all crazy. And everybody, like, again, you don't have to agree with everything that Scott Ritter says. You ain't got to approve of everything that Scott Ritter says, but he should still be able to say it. And until we get out of these bubbles where we feel like the only way someone should be able to say something is if we approve of it, we're never going to get closer to having any type of true free speech in this country, which we don't have. We are heavily censored. Our rights are slowly being stripped away from us. And anytime someone can get onto a damn plane and pull you off of it and seize your passport, because apparently you're going somewhere that they don't think that you should go for too long of a time, we are not free in this country, regardless of who your president is. These are problems. These are big problems. You thought they were trying to control you before. Some of you thought they were trying to control you before because of with the pandemic. Remember we talked about that? That was just the beginning. Just the beginning. I did reach out to Scott. He said he's okay. So just letting people know, for people wondering, like, is he all right? He said he's all right. But this is just, it's ridiculous. I'm tired of this. Like, it's crazy. And I don't care who it was. It doesn't even have to be someone that I agree with. That's the thing. It shouldn't happen. You should be able to get on the plane and go where you want to go.